Today's video is about defeating the hive mind traps. So the hive mind is a collective of thousands of individuals going about their daily specialized tasks in support of a greater colony, right? We can talk about a sort of greater, like, super organism, and that's exactly how you can end up in some of the new cage hotspots for the reels, by following kind of different trends that you are finding along your quest. That's been the case for me. And when you trace what happened back, you can generally trace the signature of what was going on. Now we can also picture the hive mind like an enormous worm with many tentacles, giving kind of commands to different sections, right? Then we also find the hive mind mentality, which is a kind of groupthink, when beings inside that group have a strong tendency to kind of follow and fall for the group decision making, right? So in my journey, I realized that hive mind spaces have had a big influence on the choice I've been making, and I keep on seeing how it does influence a lot of beings, all the fire creations. So it does affect how we are spending our time, what we are choosing to do, what ideas are erupting in our own mind, because you can actually be guided by AI or AI beings in your creative process, right? It's a way of handling you, cutting you from your true connection to spirit. And I see that a lot, right? I've seen that with myself, with different beings trying to advise me what to research and in which direction to go, or also intrusive beings kind of playing the game of making it appear like they were like interested by asking questions, but in the signature you could feel that it was AI driven, so it was disruptive. Yeah, you can feel that disruptive energy everywhere on social media. It's people wanting your attention as well in a kind of unhealthy way. And we generally pick the signature. Then it's about whether or not we give credit to what we perceive and how fast we do that. Now, a hive mind mentality is going to happen and be happening when a person is basing their personal decisions on whatever a group generally think or believes, right? It's generally unconscious, right? It's like an AI program kind of running in the background, right? It's also where you are finding a lot of AI scripts running your life, or dark faction cabal kind of scripts, if you really trace it back in your own mind. You can definitely trace the signature of all of that, and keep on being intuitive about it. On my journey, I've been part of many hive mind environments. Still up to this day, I'm aware I'm still part of hive mind environments. I do modify a lot. I mean, usually fire creation beings are beings who are not gonna stay stagnant. They're gonna move different things as soon as they notice. They're gonna try different things. So these are beings who are gonna manage their subscriptions a certain way, just noticing where the boundaries are and where the boundaries are evolving. So it helps a lot to kind of prevent a lot of this hive mind influence. And you can feel when the wall of the prison, it's kind of etheric, are starting to entrap you and engineer your life. You can actually trace it back. It gets quite obvious, and you know, you can definitely see what were the threats. Now you can also notice hive mind environments when you are finding yourself consulting the same content as someone else, or you see all the same faces on different YouTube channels, right? It tells you, well, you are part of a hive mind and they are part of a hive mind too. Or when you hear the same thoughts you had expressed maybe a few years before by someone else, right? Then you can really notice that these thoughts are running a script, and you were running a script. So you were having programmed thoughts, and a lot of thoughts are programmed. Even if we think they are our own, it's really a continuous work to make space for what is really spontaneous. And for that, you need also to stay away from a lot of these hive minds, because, you know, they are calling for more of your attention, and it's never ending as well. So that's really how it's affecting your mind, and, you know, the order you think things and the way you're going to perceive things, because usually they perceive things through one angle. And it can be either, you know, AI engineering. Many of these hive mind spaces, usually they are controlled by handlers, either partial handlers or, you know, main handlers of the scenes, different fields that we are finding out there, especially in the information scene, alternative information, because of course the reals are always going to try to look for information and keep on finding the keys for themselves. Now, these hive-mind spaces are there also to be controlling the reals, keeping them locked, keeping them under a spell. It usually is tied to external authority programming, so authority programming, right? Where, you know, it's based on you delegating your knowing, your knowledge to an external figure, right? And in these spaces, you also tend to be finding peer pressure. Now, peer pressure is a strange concept here in the simulation, because a lot of this peer pressure is done by the backdrops. So, you know, because they give this illusion of the majority, right? But they are nothing, you know, they are not real. And it's only the consent of the reals that really matter. It's only the consent of the real that they are really targeting. They couldn't be more bothered about the backdrops, you know. And we've seen that experiment, right? There are different experiments that they have been doing about mind control, but under that angle of most of these experiments, like testing backdrops, it takes another kind of form, right? Where all of this is to impress the mind of the reals, right? And to have an effect on the mind of the reals, right? And we also find a lot of repetition in the MK Ultra programs, and in the Daytime Project as well. That's how school also was such a big, you know, tool for torture and psychology, breaking us down by this repetition, right? Every day of the year, going to that kind of rigid and not so welcoming environment, right? And by repetition, it's kind of breaking your spirit down. Now you can recognize there are many different signatures in the hive mind environments. You will be able to perceive the etheric walls that are kind of imprisoning your field. Actually, you could even find it in your field. You can find that energy kind of constraining you. Now, you might have heard also the term egregore, right, for this kind of occult concept representing a non-physical entity that arises from the collective thoughts of a group, right? And we also find a lot of hive-mind thinking or hive-mind AI-driven information in the Akashic Records reading, right? Because it's kind of using a little bit of similar concepts as well to produce that kind of simulated information that looks like it could be you, but it's not really, it doesn't have this healing power to really help you understand who you are. So we can definitely talk about these numerous hive mind prisons that we are finding everywhere. You have different fields, you have the political scene, you have the alternative information scene, you have the scientific scene, and in each of them you find hive mind environments, the fringe scene, the ufology scene. So when do we know we are in a hive mind environment? I think you're gonna notice a higher degree of engineering in your life. And if you trace back the thread of it, you're going to be able to kind of sense how and when and where did it started. And it's going to really help to know whether or not you are in a controlling, problematic hive mind environment. Now, why is it important to unplug from these hive mind, from within us, and to disengage from these environments, or really to be leaving them when they are, becoming too constraining? And, you will be needing to leave them when you are with a major handler. In this case, it's best to really have a clear cut and process what happened and learn the lessons from it, and then also share about it. That's a great way. Sharing our observations and life experiences is a great way to speed the process for other reals. Now, you also have a lot of hive mind environments on social media, right? Facebook is a great example of that. I had different experiences, right? A few years ago, I was adding, I did change a lot my way of behaving and choosing. But in the past, I find myself with probably about 1,500 beings in my network. Then I went for a massive purge after a reprogramming event where, I was trying to look for the real and also people who were safe. And I also let go of many of the backdrops. And since then, I have reconnected with quite like a medium network, right? And I feel at peace with that amount and how I'm handling it. But there was a time where I was in different hive mind environments under controlled by different handlers, and I kind of had the thoughts we're all in the project, and that's why we are finding each other on Facebook. We're in the same hive minds. That's how we all got there. That's how we all got connected. And if you ever followed like the suggestion thread to build your network on any of these social media platforms, you might have noticed that there was dark engineering behind it, that it can lead you actually to your next handler. So it's kind of dangerous to follow and generally not playing in your favor, right? So also where there was this knowing of where we're part of the project together in a sense, right? But it's also connected to well, these hive-minds are connected to daytime projects. And in addition to that, you have the missions, the nighttime missions, and the abductions as well. Then, of course, we are memory-wide, but there is still a kind of knowing, and this knowing is linked to a memory inside the body. These hive-minds environment tend to interfere with our personal evolution rhythm. And we are generally only supported as long as we are part of these hive-mind environments. We're not really encouraged to trust in our inner guidance. We're only encouraged to follow it as long as it serves the guru we are kind of connected to, right? So it's asking for a sacrifice of our personal truth in general in favor of the group consensus. A lot of online communities have a strong hive-mind signature. And these spaces can instigate really crippling self-doubt, and you might become aware of the collective delusion, right? But of course, it's always asking an effort to break free from any of these spaces because there is a sense of comfort and relief and for safety to be part of these because we don't have to dig deeper. We're kind of surrounded by who appear to be similar-minded environment, but you will find a lot of simulation, a lot of mirroring, and sometimes you can just notice or sense that you were just interacting with an AI programs. Now, when you leave the hive mind environment, it's common to be kind of castigated or attacked, because you are triggering the order of that kind of hive mind space, right? So it's not going to happen without a little battle on the battlefield, maybe. And that's when you can notice that you were only granted a kind of conditional membership, as long as you were agreeing to cut yourself from parts of yourself, part of your core spirit, right? To be able to continue to fit in. And you were often asked to function mainly through your alters, through your programs, sub-personalities, most of the time people pleasing, right? That doesn't help to, be your own individual, strong and, clear. So it's generally encouraging you to self-censor. Therefore, we can realize how these hive mind environment are also very self-censoring, encouraging self, censoring the self, especially the core spirit. Now, it also leaves you kind of vulnerable to be part of them because it encourages a lot of self-doubt, not trusting in yourself. These spaces do not want your independence, neither the architects designing them. And of course, we have like the beings on the 3D daytime kind of level playing a role with these hive mind, but they are often very attached and coded to different groups. And these are the real kind of engineer and architects. You will always find backdrops in hive mind's environment. They are always part of them. They are always attaching to the main narratives, or to like secondary narratives. That's how they are designed and programmed. And it's because it has an effect on the psyche, on the emotions, on the spiritual journey of the reals. Now, these hive mind space also go against you anchoring your own unique signatures as a spirit. You know, the lives of the reals are engineered. You can definitely see many different patterns repeating, parameter repeating, but it's also very specific, right? You have some fire creation beings, for example, who have been born and rise to fame through their Masonic kind of system of fame, and it looks like they have a different life than us, but when you actually like see further than what the media is kind of serving you as a story, when you look for the handlers, when you look in their families, when you look who is simulation around them, who was a handler, of course they are gang stalk. You know, they are refusing a part of their privacy by the agreements they are making. So this life is going to be in appearance different from someone who is not on the public scene and who is like facing different challenges in their lives, right? But if you look deeper, you will see that it's actually very similar. So, but it's always also individual, because each of us is different in what we will be choosing. You know, or we have many different specificities in our signatures, and there is specific entrapment for all of that, of course. So, of course, the architects, the engineers of the game especially want to trap real individuals, real spirits in these hive-mind environments. They couldn't care less about the backdrop being there. The backdrop are there just to kind of call the reals in, to attach to this agenda, to attach to these mainframes. And, you know, when you're part of it, you might not realize that your mind is kind of functioning as one with AI run narratives or dark faction run narratives, cabal also narratives. And it's like this collective hive mind is transcending your individual mind and actually your work to anchor more of your spirit. And breaking free from programming can be hard and sometimes extremely painful. It can trigger a lot of fears as well. But sometimes you know you have to do something, but it's scary, it's the unknown, and it's triggering a lot of programming. But you know for it, you know it's true. Despite your programming kind of kicking in, due to a lot of illusions and a lot of, you know, embedded programming as well. If you have if you've been needing to take a decision, you know, to take a difficult decision to part ways with either a human or an animal, and you might have been feeling a lot of guilt, it's showing that you haven't fully broken your programming already, but you know that the steps of doing that action is also necessary for you to keep on breaking through your programming. And then you can kind of process and you can recognize and trace what's really going on. In these hive-mind spaces, you will find a lot of programmed intelligences. So it looks smart, but it's also hiding a lot of engineering. These spaces are generally, of course, very limiting. There is a lot of conformity to dark agendas, even and probably especially on the fringe scene. You know, it debilitates your decision making. It's less functional maybe than it could be, and you know, there is a lot of being on automatic rail due to mind control and a lot of programming, right? So sometimes you mindlessly are following instruction either given by the media or in your everyday life, right? For example, when someone, you know, when your phone rings or when someone knock at the door, right, there is this impulse to go and answer. But you know, if as me you've been working on that, you know, there are many different ways, but there is this trigger. That's why also these I mean, our lives are full of trigger, and we are trained to follow like mindlessly these triggers that are driving us in you know, very reactive behavior and in our reactive programming. So how not to get lost in the hive mind thinking, how to kind of break that thread of engineering in our life, because we soon realize that we are, I mean, it's quite widespread here, but we are encouraged to create from our unconscious and very shadowy parts. And you really have to fight hard not to be on automatic rails in your thoughts and in your actions every single day, right? So I'm an advocate to be decoding from these hive mind mentalities. It comes with keeping on dismantling ego structures and shadow parts, and you know, overcoming this I mean, the need or desire to control is hugely a problem here, because that's exactly the moment when you are being recruited as a handler because of that kind of ego pattern in you, you know, leading to kind of power struggles in different spaces, right? In these hive mind spaces, you can notice, you know, that you can actually sense it depending on how you really function, and with which abilities you kind of perceive reality, but you can feel, sense, see that it's full of tunnel visions, right? It's meant to kind of like put you on this rail. The rail is actually a great imagery for that, right? And you know, you can see this kind of crossroad with different rails when you are kind of leaving a hive mind environment. Now, of course, these spaces are linked to mind control, and mind control being very active in our lives. And if you trace back the signature, you will also probably be able to tune to the signature of the real architects hiding these other forces kind of influencing the game. So this video is also, you know, kind of about retracing, you know, how different types of negative artificial intelligences have been managing the way we network, for example, most of the time leading us to handlers, disruptors, or distractors. Now, these hive mind spaces are also part of the remote handling, right? It doesn't, I mean, it depends if you are in a physical kind of hive mind like you are when you go to school, for example, but there are many hive mind spaces online, and you don't ever need to meet these beings for your mind to be affected by what you read, the quality of the interaction, what you experience when you are there, all of that. So, you know, you will be able to tune to the signature of different hidden contracts that are at play. And, you know, it's kind of a dark game that different forces are also encouraging and making sure a lot of these hive-mind spaces are kept in place, right? Now, tracing a lot back, I notice how there's the degree of engineering of how people are being reunited. Sometimes they collaborate online or in daytime reality, right? Many beings are used to create these hive mind environments, right? Usually a fire creation being kind of can lead a hive mind environment because of all their programming, right? And then when they associate with other, either spirited, non-spirited, but especially the fire creation beings, right? That's, you know, then you're kind of adding dimensions and density and layers with these kind of you know, it kind of it's not really a clear line. It's it can reinforce the power, it can expand the hive mind environment and so on. So it generally is having an effect on any community that is following the work of such and such for years, for decades. You know, even something that happened 10 years ago can still be, you know, you can still have the aftermath of that, and you can trace back a lot of the engineering behind it. Now, these spaces are encouraging a lot for us to be in our people-pleasing sub-personalities, not really speaking our truth, you know, getting triggered in our alters, and, you know, reinforcing, like it works like a kind of ping pong ball where, like, you being in your altar is going to reinforce me being in my altar through that kind of hive mind mentality. And, you know, there is not really a lot of movement, and, you know, there is a lot of being stuck and stagnant. So a lot of illusion is actually being reinforced by actively participating and engaging in these spaces. And of course, it doesn't encourage us to think critically and evolve spiritually. And thinking critically is not that easy if you've become aware of the extent of your programming. When read, it might seem like an easy thing to do, but it's really not, because of all the mechanism or the backdoor programming, all the subtleties that are with us in this game, you know, with the entities we can be picking up that are going to influence also our thoughts and feed from lower negative thoughts. And, you know, when you know, there is really a lot of there are really a lot of parameters, right? So I mean, I left a lot of hive mind environments. I pay attention. I pay attention online because it's very important on social media, how I'm handling my subscription and what I'm exposing myself to, even with beings I love. Sometimes I realize that it's not for my highest interest to daily stay connected to, for example, you know, reels who are not very aware of their reels who are really fragmented, because sometimes you can see their pain. It's going to trigger different kind of programming, might be your savior complex, or your wound of non-recognition, or just frustration, and what would be there if there wasn't, if for that moment I wasn't experiencing that, right? It leaves kind of more like a white page where you can also keep on building more of yourself, and the vision you have for your life, keeping on working on not being on rail, because of course the architects design specifically different scenarios for your life, right? Hoping you're gonna fall for, if it's not this one, maybe it will be this other one, right? And you really have to really fight really hard to keep on realigning, because every day the simulation adjusts and your memory wipes, so you even forget your goal and your commitments. So it really takes a lot of us being really conscious to keep on building on our progresses, and to keep on reminding ourselves about what I've really been choosing here. So it's really interesting to trace back all the subtle aspects of the influences of my hive-mind spaces. And sometimes we might not be aware that our programming is kind of running us, or AI is kind of running us. And it's important to pay attention to that, and to kind of take back control as soon as we notice this happening in our lives. I'm a firm advocate to keep on anchoring our spirits here. These hive-mind spaces also, the architects behind them are taking advantage of any of our interests, right? To keep on sending us suggestions that we might be falling for, and your own specificities. So it's really going to be very individualized, depending on what you like, what you are working on anchoring here. Of course, there is a great danger to fire creation beings thinking freely or being in that flow, and that's why this flow is interrupted so many times a day. All fire creation beings are pushed, by the simulation, trying to push you to postpone, to do things in a different order, right? And you have to kind of find a new flow with all these kind of turbulences. So there is a great threat to our creative power and all that we are able to be and to manifest here when we are actually walking in our power and walking towards anchoring more of our very unique spirit signature.